What's up? So, welcome back to the next edition of Welcome to Gunner's Trainwreck Life as a Child. Not entirely sure where I left off, but I'll pick up where I think I left off. It's a good one. By the way, I still have these Philly hats. I gave one away. I had 3. So, anybody wants a Philly hat, order one, get 2. Just saying. And also, I wanted to remind people that if I have all these books, you guys, I have all these books that I'm giving away. They're signed by authors who've been on my show, and they send me signed books, and I think that's cool. And so I give them away. So I do one live stream a week, maybe 2. Me and Larry Mazza might kind of pick up the game plan where we left off, just for like the playoffs and the Super Bowl, for the people who like that, want to get their odds on the games. But so if anybody super chats, I'm giving them away. I'm not gonna give them away unless you pay for the shipping. That's it. I feel like I'm not a sucker. I'm not just gonna pay for the shipping for you. But there's some great books. I don't give away my own books, unfortunately, because those cost me money but I have. I'm gonna show you some of these books. Amazing books. Seth Ferrante's books. Oh, one of his. This is my last one. Street Legends, about gangsters. Street gangsters. You love it. I think it's signed too. This is Gangsters versus Nazis, about the Jewish the Jewish gangs taking on the Nazis in World War I and II and stuff. Crazy. Got 2 of those left, so that's good. This is a great book. It's the Jimmy Hoffa, The Gap. It's about this story. My friend David Tubman, his mother and father saw Jimmy Hoffa get abducted, and he wrote a whole book about his theory and what happened to him. And it pretty much contradicts everybody else's theory, contradicts the expert. I don't believe the experts worth shit anymore, man. But there's certain experts we know, and they're not credible to me. This is Sandra Petty's book, Sonny Francis. It's not signed, but it's a great book. It's hardcover. It's like a $40 book, so check it out. She's a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist reporter for Newsweek or Newsday. I can't remember the 2. I got Tony DiStefano's books. I got just a bunch of great books. So make sure, if you guys want those books, hit me up there in a live stream. A live stream Wednesday night, maybe Saturday morning. I'm going to do a couple with Larry Mazza. Other than that, I hope everyone's good. I got to adjust my camera here. I record these with my phone. I don't even care anymore. But so one other thing I want to address is I get the goofies who question my life. So there's a couple. I never pay attention to them. I don't listen to them. I never did. But finally, I kind of looked at what they're saying, and there's just so many goofy things. It's embarrassing. But what are the couple things? So they will go back and watch every interview I've ever done, and in some stories I may say things a little bit differently. There's one, I'm going to give you an example of one. I remember I told the story of when I got jumped, hit in the head with a bat and all that, right? I remember I told it again years later, and after I told it, I told it wrong. I said I got hit in the head with a baseball bat from behind, and I turned around and grabbed the guy by the throat and I tackled him, whatever. When in fact I got hit in the head with a bat from behind, and as I turn around to see who the hell hit me, dude was already coming back with another one, wham, and broke this bat over my head. That's why I have this big scar on my head there. So I mean, a tiny little minute detail that I forgot. And when I later watched the show, or it's something I probably was watching, I go, oh man, I freaking told it wrong. That's what happens when you're recalling a story that's 30 years old from the cuff. It happens. Like the thing with Tony Jack. This is another one. When you tell these stories and you're trying to protect the identity of certain people, you have to change some names and places and events, right? And I told the story, I said Tony Jack's sister paged me. Well, here's exactly how it went down, because I didn't really remember it exactly till I thought about it. I got a page from my grandmother. My grandmother pages me, says, call Tony. I call Tony. Tony says, call this woman. I'm not going to say who she is to me. It's cousin. She was a cousin. He called her an aunt because she was old enough to be my mother. That's why I said, oh, it was my aunt. He said, go over there, help him out. So I went there and I did. But I had called her my aunt. I said, Tony called me. These tiny little details. And they go through 100. They pay attention to every word I say and try to piece together. It's really ridiculous, man. What some of the other ones, I mean, they're just really goofy things. I mean, when you, and I changed his name because I didn't want the identity of that person being known. That's another one. I when I mentioned my cousins Frankie and Johnny, that's not their names. I don't use their real names. Why? One's still alive and around. One's in prison on appeal for murder. I'm not going to tell these stories and connect them. So when I was telling the stories, I had to come up with names that I would remember really easy. So I'd think of somebody that reminded me of them, and bang, that's what I would do. So a few times I confused Johnny. You're telling these stories that are 30 years old. You have to protect the identities of some of the people you're talking about. I mean, like, here's another really stupid one. Stupid. My uncle told me that there was when I was very young, like 5 years old, I go in the basement and they're working in the pantry and they have the shelves back and there's like a tunnel going in there. And I say, what's this? And they kind of try to scare me. Go in there. And not like me and sister are like, well, get on. No. So years later, I asked my uncle, not that many years longer, I was probably like 10. I said, what was that for? And he said, prohibition. They smuggled liquor in that way. And I didn't even know what that meant. So years later, I'd ask my mom, I think, what's prohibition? And she told me. So here's the thing. The geeks who are calling this into question actually Google up the history of that home and found it was built in 1953 or whatever. And I'm like, okay, so my uncle told me that this tunnel in the basement was, and my uncle, who's pretty much a con man, scammer, not a very honest guy, had told me that. I had no reason to question it. I certainly didn't look up the history of the house, right? And that's the same thing with my great grandfather, Sal Toko. I never did the genealogy. I never cared. I had a brief conversation with an expert, supposedly, and I said, and it made sense. I said, could this be my great grandfather? He said, yeah, maybe. So that's it. I just went with it because I don't look it up because I don't care. And then they actually did a full-blown genealogy of my life and said, it's not itself. So these little tiny things are super petty, and I don't address them. I don't care, but I'm just saying, if you hear these things, it's like, these things are really absurd, you know what I'm saying? And again, if you are telling a story that's 30 years old and you've told it multiple times and you forget a detail or you misspeak a detail, and that, there's one other thing with Jack Toko and the track. Oh my goodness. When they transferred the track into the name of this investment company from Southfield, that was a shell company. Theoretically, they still owned it or controlled it. They were there. The people who owned it, it's just like when you put a casino in somebody else's name. They were trying to shake off the FBI. So that was that. And again, I did what I did there when I did. I don't know what to tell you. I thought it was a freaking crazy, stupid place for me to meet too. But it is what it is. So anyways, so back to my childhood. Let me get that out of the way. Because it's goofy. And there's a deer out there. I'm looking at a deer on my property. I just don't understand why people would take hours and hours of their time, even spend their money now to try and go through every video. I mean, I cannot imagine having that kind of time. These people are seriously mentally ill. Naturally, I'm sure they don't have jobs and they just, for whatever reason, they want to attack me and discredit, which I think is absurd. I don't think it's funny. I think it's mental. And all these little things that they've talked about just do nothing to discredit me. I mean, it's a simple either mistake or you taking it out of context, one or the other. So anyways, back to where I left off with my dad. I can't say I remember for sure if I told you this, but so I'll tell it again. When I moved in with my father when I was 14 years old, I made a new set of friends. I started a new school. Basically, he got in a fight and barely won the fight of like the second toughest kid in the school when I was about 3 days in, right? So this gave me a reputation. It kind of gave me a reputation being a tough guy. I wasn't big. I was skinny, little wiry kid, kind of an overbite. I was nobody. I was a loser. I didn't have any money for clothes, so I didn't have nice clothes. I had nothing going on for me. I wasn't handsome. But I did start hanging around this kid named Jason Battaglia. Real handsome Italian kid that all the girls liked. It was one of those strange, miraculous things where, make sure to check out Art Thing Apparel, you guys. We got dope. Art Thing Apparel, make it your thing. Where it was a miraculous thing where this very handsome, popular kid, for whatever reason, took the time to to get to know me. And he was very fascinated by me, this kid, Jay. Real handsome kid. Kind of a stocky Italian kid. Girls love him. But he took the time to get to know me and started to realize, like, this Al kid is freaking really smart. And he's a tough kid. Like, he's not a punk. So we started hanging around and became best friends. And so because of him, I had a little bit of, I don't want to say cred or popularity, but a little bit. A few girls noticed me, and I was ugly. I was not going to get no girls, but I did feel up. One of the prettiest girls in school. They were sleeping in a tent. Me and Jay went there, and Jay hooks up with one of the girls. Another girl's like, my neck is sore. You rub my neck. I start rubbing it. I'm like, hey, what about this? It's funny. It's my claim to fame in 8th grade. But me and Jay were kind of wild kids. Jay would hustle, like steal stuff. Like one time, he had this girlfriend, man, who was like 16 years old, right? 17 years old. Her name was Michelle. Pretty girl, beautiful body. And she would buy us beer. She would buy us weed. She'd pick us up and drive us around. And one day, the father hated us because we'd wait for her to get off work. And as soon as she came home from work, we'd be like, yo, let's go. Buy us a bag, buy us some beer, and we'd take off. Dad hated us. We'd have to wait down the block because Dad didn't want us around. I don't blame him. And one day, we were waiting down the block or walking down the block. Shoreview was the street. I see this boat in the backyard or in the driveway, right? And it's got a nice new outboard motor, Evinrude motor. And I see that, and I say to my boy, I'm like, yo, if we can get that, my dad will buy it. He's like, yeah? He's like, let's get it. So then a couple days later, week later, we're drunk. It's 2:00 in the morning. Jay would say he was spending the night at my house. I say I was spending the night at his house. And we would just stay out all night. That's what we do. Oftentimes we hang out with that girl. We get a hotel or we just hang out with that girl all night. One of my friends, Poshko, had a garage with like a little apartment and upstairs. We just sneak in there and sleep in it. Wherever. We just bum around. So one night we're all drunk and Jay's like, let's get that motor. So I said, let's get it. We went up to it and it's got like a lock on it so you can't steal it. It's like this bracket that goes on it. It's got a padlock. I'm like, we need a crowbar. So we get the crowbar out of the trunk of Michelle's car. She had a Thunderbird. We say, park 2-3 houses down and wait. And if, for some reason their light goes on and they chase us, we're just going to run into the neighborhood and disappear. You take off. She's like, okay. I think we even had the trunk popped. Or like, just sitting there like you lift it up. Jay goes in there and we freaking lock thing. He's like, snap! It's super loud. Bang! We run. We take off running. We go like around a house or two and hide around the corner. Nothing happens. Get about 10 minutes. We're good. We broke the lock though. So now we slide a little bracket off there. And this thing's heavy as a mother effer, man. We pick it up and the thing weighed probably 100 pounds, and it's awkward. And we were only, 15 years old, 14. We were like 15 by this point, I think. And we were running down the street with this. So we get it to the car and throw it in the trunk. And I bring it to my dad. And this is the lie that I make up to tell my dad. I say, Dad, this is Jay's grandpa's motor. Jay's grandpa died. It was left over in the estate. It was just sitting in his basement. I saw it, thought you might want to buy it. It's a nice motor. It's brand new. Nice Evinrude. I know they're real expensive. He's like, how much does he want? I'm like, how much you give us? And he's like, I'll tell you what. I'll give you $350 and I'll give you a $150 finder's fee. Because he knew it was worth at least $1,500. I'm like, done. It's yours. And then I split the money with Jay and never told him about my finder's fee. So I got like $175 each and kept the $150 from my dad. So that's the type of stuff we were doing when we were that age. And then around this age, but that's how I got a little money off the street. Not a lot. We were just scumbags. I wasn't a thief. I didn't like to steal. I hung around a couple guys that were thieves. My friend Ricky was a thief. He's the only one that was a thief that hung around with. Jay would steal something if his opportunity was there, but I wasn't a thief. I didn't like to steal. And to be honest, I'll tell you a couple quick stories. We used to drive around in my friend's LTD and we'd steal fuzzbusters, or they would. My friend Ricky had a CO2 gun. He'd walk up to the window and shoot the side window out, grab the fuzzbuster and take off run. Even if the alarm went off, he didn't care. He'd grab it and go. And then we could sell it for a bag of weed. We get, depending on what kind it was, if it was a Whistler, Passport, a Uniden, the nicer ones, You'd get a quarter ounce of weed for him, and then we go trade it for some weed, and then we smoke weed, drive around high all day, drive around the neighborhood, go down to the city, freaking drive around, maybe. And so Ricky was always stealing. So one day, they'd all kind of rotate stealing these fuzzbusters, and I wouldn't do it. So one day they're like, Al, man, you got to steal this next one. This next one's on you, man. Yeah, Al, they're all looking at you. It's your turn, man. Your turn. You smoke the weed. You hang out with us, but you won't steal. I'm like, all right, fine. So we find one. It was an Escort, one of the big fat Escort fuzzbusters. Those were worth money. It was probably worth a quarter ounce of weed, or brand new. They were like $150 or something. So we peep one. It was on a dead end street, and I said, turn the car around in case I get chased, so I can run. And anyways, Jimmy, nice pun, went up to the door with a Jimmy, and Jimmy's the door open, right? He gets it, click, it's open. He runs back to the car. He's like, all right, it's open, man, just grab it. Just as I come walking up and open the door, the freaking front door flies open. Hey, motherfucker, what you doing? I take off running. This guy comes chasing after me. I go running down the street. Jimmy starts driving off, starts taking off. I jumped in the car from a 10-mile-an-hour roll. They throw the door open for me. I'm like, whew, I jump in the car, or peel off. So I almost get caught. The first time I ever tried to steal a fuzzbuster, I almost get caught. The next time I tried to steal a fuzzbuster, again, I was about the same age. I drove to Metropolitan Beach on a Saturday or Sunday. There's literally 100,000 people there. I mean, it's just, the place is packed. It's just 100,000 people are at the beach. And I'm driving around in my moped, checking out cars, looking for fuzzbusters. I wanted a bag of weed and didn't want to share it with all these freaking scumbags that hang around. I had my own bag of weed. I could sit around my house, smoke, watch Yo MTV Raps or freaking Nat Geo or something. So I was looking for fuzzbusters, right? There was a couple I saw, but there's too many people around. Then I see a car with the window rolled down. And I said, okay, that's the one. I kind of surveil the area. I drive around a few times. But I've been driving around, peeping out cars for about 20 minutes. Now, somebody reported me. So I pull up to this car, right next to the car, and I go to reach in and grab this fuzzbuzzer. It's a passport, the most expensive one. I go to reach to grab this passport, and I look, and there's a mother effer in the back seat. I'm assuming he was drunk or something, and his eyes are open, and he looks at me. He don't say nothing. He sees me reaching in the car, and I go, whoa! And I freaking turn around, pull off, and then I got pulled over by security about 5 minutes later when I was leaving or trying to get away, and they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, nothing. They're like, you were seen by some cars. I'm like, no, I wasn't. I had to pee. I stopped to take a piss. Between cars, couldn't hold it, whatever. And they're like, you better get out of here. And it wasn't cops. I couldn't do nothing there. Like, I'm out of here. So this is the reason why I wasn't a thief. However, I hung around some thieves, Ricky and Ricky, the two thieves that I hung around, both were Ricky. And they would steal shit, but I'll get into that later. I started selling weed because around this age, when I was about 15 years old, I was athletic. I played sports all the time. We'd always sit in the backyard. We'd go bounce around from house to house, and we play basketball, right? I tried to get everybody to play baseball, but a lot of people didn't like to play baseball, but we'd go play. Football was it. I won't even get into football with me. No, nobody would want to play with me. I mean, I'll tell this, and there'll be one of these freaking dweebs will go, oh, this is bullshit. I don't believe it. There's no way. I'm telling you. They wouldn't want to play football with me because it wasn't even fair, man. And I was not a big dude. I was just wiry and strong as a motherfucker. And so, in the game, we have in order to get a first down, you had to get, it wasn't really 10 yards, but it was X. Or they had to have 3 completions. All they would do is have me on the team and give me the ball, and I go smashing through. It might be 7-on-7 kids. We played it in between on Glenbrook. There's a grass median between the rows, and about 100 yards long, and or probably a little less. Or at the school we played, and I just beast them, and they would get mad, man. I don't want to play no more. I don't want to play no more. They're like, you have to give us Al in the next game. They got to rotate Al. Because it ain't fair, because all you do is give to him, and he just smashes his way down the field. I'm dragging 6'7", motherfucker. They finally tackled me. I thought it was a blast, and I would have played every day, all day, but nobody wanted to play with me. Anyways, I was fast metabolism. I was wiry. I was muscular, but just wiry. And so I was starving all the time. I was hungry all the time. And some of my friends' parents started to notice, Like, I mean, I would go to my friend Jay's house, and the mother would have, like, she put food in the crock pot and go to work and then come home, and I just like drooling over to smell that crock pot. And she's like, "What's wrong? What, you haven't eaten?" I said, "Nah, I'm not eating. I mean, Dad don't have the food." "What do you mean, no, Dad don't have any food?" He's like, he only makes like one thing in the evening. I get one meal. This might be some cereal or some crackers or something in the house, but that's it. "I mean, you only eat one meal a day?" I said, "Yeah." And she'd be like, "Sit down, eat." My friend Pat, his mother, God rest his soul, she was a tough woman and a sweetheart who really, really liked me for years. Kind of became like a surrogate mother, my friend Pat O'Brien, until I started getting in trouble. And then she backed away from me. She's like, "Yo, she was bonding me out of jail all the time. That's how good of a friend's mother she was. She must have bonded me out of jail like 10 times. It was always for petty stuff, driving on suspended or something stupid like that. Nothing major, but still. And like calling your friend's mom to come bond you out of jail like 10 times over like 2 years. She's finally like, she would be a bitch to me, and I understand why. I don't blame her. I know his itches. So she would feed me. She said, "You come over every day, you can get a meal out of us." See, I was nice, but I was starving all the freaking time. Starving, man, just so hungry. So what I started doing is, and this is kind of the evolution of my involvement in crime and organized crime and drugs and things like that. My friend Jimmy's cousin, his name was Joe Bolin. I'll say his name. He's a good dude and wouldn't give a shit if I said his name. He's out there. Shout out to Joe Bolin, Roseville. If you're from Roseville, circa 1980s and 90s, you know Joe. You know his whole crew. I'm not going to say their names. Mike Cain's another OG. Shout out to Mike Cain. But, so Jimmy, his younger cousin, was like, he was 16 and he had a car. And if we wanted a bag of weed, he would take us over to Jimmy's house. Because my nose is itching. I hate it. And so he would say, "Give me the money, wait in the car, I'll run in and get the bag." He'd go in there for 10 minutes. We'd be waiting. We were scared. Kids, they're doing it like we're doing a big drug deal or something. We're sitting in the car waiting. Time's tick, tick. Like, we think we're going to get busted. It's so stupid. And these Roseville cats were gangsters, man. And when they were freaking gangsters, they didn't give a shit about the police. They didn't care about the neighbors. Because that was the type of community it was. It was like a lower class white trash kind of community, just above white trash. They didn't, as long as you weren't slanging crack from your house and had crackheads coming and going, they weren't saying nothing. You know what I'm saying? They would cover for you. Jimmy would come out, give you the bag, and it was always a little light. So basically he would go in there, pinch the bag, maybe make $5 on it. Then we go and smoke the bag over the next day or so, hanging out, and that's how it worked. So he had two cousins. One's named Terry or TD, and then there was Joe. Joe was a slick mother effer. Joe was a badass. He was just one of them slick, funny, slick willy mother effers. He had really curly hair, and he cut it into almost like a high top fade, which is funny because just on a white dude you wouldn't think, but it looked good on him. He was really funny, and he liked me. They all called me Elf. Him and his crew. There was a bunch of black dude named Tommy, big white dude named Nick. There was, I don't even want to say the other one's name, but I'll say it's DC. My nose drives me crazy. I'm not on coke. My nose itches when I talk. That's what happened. So they got to know me a little bit because we were like the younger cousins of their cousin. And they'd come outside and bullshit with us a little bit, maybe even smoke a joint with us and hang out a little bit, then we'd leave. But Jimmy said, "Don't ever go there without me. Whatever you do, never go there." And we knew it was because he wanted to pinch the bag. He was a massive pothead. He still is. Massive pothead. If he's still alive, he's a massive pothead today. That's just who he is. Which is cool. I like Jimmy. He was fair enough to me. He never tried to bully me or pick on me or be an asshole to me. And he'd pick me up. He'd go to my house and pick me up, and that's all I could ask for. Like a lot of time they wouldn't pick me up, but I didn't have much to offer, man. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any drugs. I didn't have any freaking stolen merch. They'd pick me up and he'd go get high, smoke weed in the neighborhood, and hang out. So the fact that he was willing to do that made me like him. He didn't show me a lot of love because nobody showed me a lot of love except Jay. Jay showed me a lot of love. That's it. Nobody else. Everyone else is like, this freaking Al kid's scumbag. You know what I'm saying? He's a loser. Kicked out of 8th grade the second time. He failed the first time. Freaking loser. Nobody wanted. But Jay was like, "Yo, this is my dog." Like Jay brought me into the fold, and said, Ricky, the main leader of this little crew, like, Al's good people, man. He's a tough guy. He's funny. He's smart. And, like, all right, hang out with him. So when I'm about 15, I remember looking in the refrigerator one day. I'm kicked out of school, by the way. I'm completely expelled from school. So this is my second time in 8th grade. I got expelled. And I don't know if I told that story, but I'll tell it really quickly. I was the second time in 8th grade. And what I was doing was buying bags of weed, like eighths, quarters, maybe a half ounce, which was a lot for me. And then I'd roll up joints, a bunch of joints. And I'd sell enough to make my money back with joints. And I'd sell them for $5 a joint, which is expensive back then. And they were nice joints. And I'd sell enough to make my money back so I could buy another bag of weed. And I'd have 5, 6 joints left over from a quarter ounce or a half ounce or whatever it was. Plus, I'd have a little bit of money for munchies because I was always hungry. So one of my favorite things to do was like smoke a joint when I was alone. Everybody's in school. I'm at home. Jimmy's at work or something like that because he dropped out of school too. So in the morning, I'll get up. First thing I want to do is smoke a joint. My dad's at work, and then I would get high, but there's nothing to eat in the house. So I'd run up to this party store, which ironically was owned by my current wife's uncle, who just passed away. God rest his soul. It was only like a mile from my house, and I'd shoot up there in my moped and buy some. This is what I get. I get a Yoo-hoo, chocolate Yoo-hoo, bag of Doritos, and a king-size Snickers bar. And I go back and I'd be happy. But one day, well, I want to tell you how I got kicked out of school really quick. I'm going to tell you how the progression of the drug dealing started. I got kicked out of school because about halfway through the school year when I was 15 years old, which I should have been, I should have been in high school. I failed. So I should have been in high school at 15 years old. But I didn't. They had this concert come to the school, right? Can't remember, but it was a rock and roll band. And we all get in auditorium and we're all in the bleachers and they start throwing out T-shirts and Frisbees and crap to the crowd. And the guy's got a Nerf football. And I'm like, right here. Because I love football. Love it. Right here. He throws it into the crowd, but it's like 3 rows down and 5 people over. I dive and catch the football. But in the process of doing that, I hurt a few people. I crushed some people. And one of them was a girl. I kneed her in the side of the head, in the ear. She's crying in the middle of a concert. My principal, his name is Sheets. Mr. Sheets is a bald-headed dude. Goes, Lim, come here. So I walk out and he goes, go in the hallway. I go in the hallway and my vice principal, Mr. Kuznia, who's a total D-bag, he's a little Asian dude. Not little, he's like a shorter, probably 5'7", but about 200-pound stocky Asian dude, right? With a Fu Manchu goatee and glasses. He goes, what the fuck is wrong with you? And he punches me in the face. What the fuck is wrong with you? Bang! Hits me. I go, motherfucker, bang! I punch him back, bang! And I get ready to fight. He's like, that's it. You're out of here. Get the frick out of school. You ain't never coming back. I'm like, good. And I was like, wait till I tell my dad you hit me, mother effer. You can't hit me. You ain't my dad. Wait till I tell him. I'm trying to scare him, but my dad wasn't going to do shit. My dad was not going to do nothing. He was my dad. So they expelled me. That was that. That was the end of my, almost the end of my school. So now I'm at home, sitting home, smoking weed all day. Now I started selling bags like this. And my friend Mark was friends with this black dude named Sidney Norton. Shout out to Sidney. He may even watch this. I'm still friends with him. I saw him in Orlando a few years ago. Good dude. I just talked to him. I don't know how Mark was friends with Sidney. I have no idea. But we would go to Sidney's house. There's another friend of mine named Matt Monday. He lived in the same projects. It was there's an area between Quinn Road and 14 Mile between Harper and Gratiot. We call it the Panic Zone. It's the Oxford Squares, the Cordova Apartments. I think there's one other one. And it's like a projects, like a square mile of projects, right? That it's almost exclusively black people and it's all crack ground zero. So people drive through all day long to buy crack and there's always black dudes standing on the corner and they, the cars pull up, like, how many you want? And they're like, let me get 3. And they freaking sell $20 Bobos all day long. Cars come and go. And the irony of that was there was a police station like a mile away. Like if you went and you pulled out on the 15 mile and then went, so it was between 15 miles, between 15 and 14 mile. Quinn Road was in the middle. the cops were right there. Police, the cops would cruise through every once in a while, but as soon as they'd see the cops, guys just start walking and like nod at the cops, like whatever. Cops can't stop everybody for nothing. Stop and frisk. Sometimes they'd run if they were dirty. They'd run, but they could get out. They knew the freaking projects better than these cops. They'd get away. They'd run around a corner, and they always had family and friends. They just running out, look out the window. The cops couldn't catch them. It was unreal how much crack they were selling in there. This is like an area where somebody who wanted to buy crack wouldn't have to go down to the ghetto to get it. It was kind of like a little ghetto out in the suburbs. And so I remember going over there to see Sydney and Matt Monday, and some of these black dudes who were crack dealers, were around, and I'd pull out of my bag and say, "You want to smoke a joint?" And I'd smoke a joint with these guys, and they were like, "Holy shit, man, that's some good ass weed, bro. How you white boys get all the good weed, man? We can't get nothing but brown dirt weed, man. Sell me that." I'm like, "Nah, I don't want to sell it, but like, sell me a joint, sell me 2 joints, sell me anything you want to sell." I'm like, "All right, I'll give you 3 joints for $15 or something." Boom, boom, boom. Like anything, it'd say anything you want, and then they smoke it with their boys, and then their boys were like, "Yo, man, ain't you the white boy with the weed?" I say, "I got a little bit of weed, but, I'll sell you a joint or 2. Come on, man, bring me a bag, man, bring me a bag." He's like, "I got cash," and they pull out a knot, a big freaking knot. These guys got big ass gold chains and freaking, they're clocking $800-900 a day. It's a lot of money for a street guy back in the late '80s. So I got it in my head, I got an idea. Enterprising. I'm sitting there looking in my refrigerator, and I'm starving. No money. And I had a freaking piece of junk moped. Piece of junk. I traded. Here's how I got it. If I'm going to be perfectly honest, and I guess I might as well be. Shame on me. I stole a gold chain from my grandmother. She had all this jewelry in this drawer. She never wore any of it. And I was looking through it, and I found this little gold chain. A little small herringbone. Never seen her wear it. She probably had it for 30 years and didn't know she had it. So I'm like, I stole it. Because I was a scumbag, I admit. I mean, that's the way I thought as a kid. I think like this because of my Uncle Pete. You have him to blame, or her son. So I trade this gold chain for this raggedy ass moped, right? It's junk. It's a red Spree. Turn signals are all busted off of it. And the throttle cable ended up breaking. So I had to pull the wire through. So in order to go, you didn't have your hand. You went, you had to pull this freaking wire. The problem with that is if you touch the brake and we're holding the wire, it'd shock you. So I had to wrap it in like duct tape. But the duct tape would always start to slip off, and you'd be riding along. It was just a piece of freaking junk. So, I mean, we drilled the baffles out of the exhaust, so it was really loud. It was fast, though. It did like 40, which is faster than most of the other ones. We painted the rims gold. And spray painted 14 karat on the side. It was funny. It's just a piece of junk. I mean, I drove it off-roading. So this is what I got. All I got. I don't have any money. I'm basically broke. And really, here's how it starts. My mother had bought me this badass Troop jacket. It was like $300. Anyone who from the late 80s remembers Troop. It's like the hottest thing. It was like freaking, Troop was, all the rappers were wearing it, all the rappers in the videos, whatever. I did have a big fat gold rope chain that my mother bought me. Big fat rope with a Mercedes on it. She bought it for me she saved up money. I don't know, maybe she got a tax return. I don't remember what it was, but she bought it like $800. And I had this Troop jacket. And I said, I have 2 things. I don't want to sell my chain because I love the chain. But the jacket, the drug dealer, or Jimmy's cousin, Joe, said, "I'll buy that jacket anytime you want to sell it." He's like, I don't remember what he said. "I'll give you a half ounce of weed," or something like that. That $300 jacket. So I'm like, I'll think about it. But now I'm thinking, if I could get my hands on a half ounce of weed, go to the Oxford Square, I can freaking triple my money, come back, get a new sack, triple that, buy another jacket. That was my plan. So I get on my moped, probably smoked a joint, got real high, put on my leather Troop jacket, my gold chain, and drove. It's an honest probably 7 or 8 miles to where they lived in Roseville. maybe as a crow's fly, it's probably like 5 miles. But the way I had to go, and I didn't go on the expressway or nothing. I knew how to get there. I was hoping Joe would be there. I had no idea if he was going to be there. I was just on a mission. I'm like, I'm starving, man. I'm literally starving here. I got to do something. My dad ain't buy no food. I have no money. And I'm a loser. I got dirty clothes, old clothes. I got nothing. I got a big gold chain. Talk about hood rich. I got a gold chain and a $300 troop jacket. And I got only got 3 pairs of jeans to my name. Freaking loser, man. And it wasn't like anyone thought I was anything. They knew I was a freaking loser. So I get to Joe's house, and right away, I noticed a couple things. First is his car isn't there. He had a black Mustang GT. And he had a red lowrider, right? A burgundy colored lowrider with chrome around the bottom and rims. Neither car was there. So I'm like, ugh, my heart sinks. However, there was a white lowrider there. And that thing was badass. And I knew the guy who owned it. Well, I believe the guy who owned it was the big dope man. The dope man behind Joe. The dope man behind the dope man. It belonged to a guy, I can't say his name. He's actually still out there. He's probably the most successful drug dealer that I've ever known in my life. I had my cousin Angelo was right up there with him. This guy had made millions of dollars. I'm not saying tens of millions, but I would say before he got out of the game, before he quit the game, he probably put up 2 or 3 million cash and had a lot of assets and properties and houses and stuff like that. I kept telling him, you got to get out of the game, dude. You got to get out of the game, man. Just retire, bro. Be over with this, man. You won, man. And he's like, yeah. And I'd say, get into weed, sell weed. You get busted with 1,000 pounds. Where you go to prison for 2 years or 4 years. You got enough money for lawyers. Who cares? You make the money. He's like, I know, man. You're right. And he kept slanging coke. And he wasn't slanging it like till the end, like huge amounts. You could ask him for half a kilo, and he'd be like, yeah, I'll bring it by. Man, that's not that much for somebody who's got millions of dollars. Typically, you get that big, and you're like, yeah, you got to buy 10 bricks, or I'm not even answering your call. Anyways, the dude's there. I see his lowrider. So I walk up to the door, and I knock on the door, and I hear they're all in there, like 4 or 5 of these thugs, these like gangsters from Roseville. I don't know if they were playing a video game. They might have been playing Nintendo for all I remember, but they're all sitting around in the living room. And right away, like TD, who's Joe's brother, he goes, hey, what's up, Elf? They call me Elf because they thought my name was Alfredo. And the reason why they thought that, because there was these girls that Jimmy's sister and cousin and stuff, and they knew my name was Alonzo. So they started calling me Alfonso. So, and then those guys were like, yo, Elf. I never really, I'm like, call me whatever you want, dude. You know what I mean? One of them was a bully. Tommy, the black dude, short, stocky black dude, he was a bully. Every time I was out there around him, he'd punch me, which is fine. It's just fine. He was making me tough. I did the same thing, the younger guys and some of my friends. Like, I do the exact same thing with some of my boys. Just, bam, punch them in the arm, boom. And they'd be like, what the frick? And I said, man, up, man, hit me back, bro, hit me back. No, I don't want no. Shut up. He was doing it to me. But the problem was, if I hit him back, it probably would have beat my ass. But Joe didn't do that. Joe was mad cool. He had this ninja, and every time I see him on this ninja, which the irony is I ended up later buying that exact same bike because of him. He had this ninja, and he would do these hole shots in front of the time. I was like, do a whole shot for me. He's like, come on. He'd start it up and just smoke the tires for like 3 houses on this Ninja 900. So Terry says, what's up, Elf? And by the way, Joe and Terry, TD, had a father and an uncle named Jerry and Terry. They looked exactly identical. They are identical twins. They both loved to party. They're both alcoholics. And they let us come, and later on, over the next year or two, they let us come over to their house. And they had a keg in their bar all the time. We could drink beer all we want, bring girls, party, whatever. He would let us, like, went to his apartment, and if you had a hot chick, like on a date or whatever, you could go over there, have a few beers, and be like, yeah, go ahead, take it in a room. And they were that cool, man. But I didn't really know him well yet. And so I said to this dude, Terry, I was like, yo, I need to talk to Joe. And he's like, yeah, he's not here. I'm like, he's like, well, what's up? I'm handling business. You know what I'm saying? What do you need? I'm like, I'm looking for a front. He goes, oh, man, you'd have to talk to Joe about that. I'm cash and carry, bro. I'm like, damn. He wanted my coat. He's like, yeah, that's between you and him. You have to ask him. I'm like, you know when he's going to be back? No idea. We're talking through the screen door. So he's at the screen door. I'm on the outside, in front of the house. Just pull up on this moped. There's a couple cars in the driveway, including this white lowrider. And I'm super disappointed. I'm super, like, almost heartbroken. To be perfectly honest, I don't think I have enough gas in my moped to make it home. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to beg the gas station to give me a quarter worth of gas, like 25 cents worth of gas or something. I don't know. Find some bottles. That was my plan. Go look for some bottles. I had no money. So I'm getting ready to leave. I'm heartbroken. I go to turn around and walk away. And then I look at the other guy. Now, he's a little guy, and he's not old. He's maybe 19, 20. I'm not going to give a description of him because I don't want to put him on blast. Certain people from Roseville are going to put this together because they know him or know of him, and he wouldn't want me putting him on blast. He has family and kids and stuff like that. So, but I see him. I say, hey, man, can I have a word with you? And he's like, I think he was playing video games or something. He was just sitting there kind of watching and listening to me on the couch. And he's like, me? I'm like, yeah, can I have a word with you? She stands up, walks in. He's like, what's up, man? I'm like, out here, man. Can I have a word with you out here? Kind of looks at his boys like, what's the kid want, man? So I'm 15. He's probably 20. He opens the door. He walks out. He's like, what's up? I said, I'm over here, man. Come down here. It's between me and you. I said, man, listen. Between me and you, I know you're the man. I ain't no dummy. And I can move some weed. I got buyers. I can move some weed. I said, I just don't know if I have any cash for the upfront. I got this coat. And Joel wanted to buy this coat. I think he said he'd give me a half ounce. This coat was $300. He starts laughing. He's like, dude, what the hell are you talking about, man? I don't. Now keep in mind, let me give you another description of this guy. At the time, he had, if you ever seen Slick Rick back in the day, like the rappers with the big gold chains, 4 or 5 big gold chains, medallions. He had like one hand had like a huge 4-finger, like $ ring, huge bracelets, multiple chains, watch, gold chain. He's covered. Every finger had a ring. Every finger had big fat rings. They were kind of those cheaper, gaudy ones. You could go buy one of them for $200, $300, kind of big, like a pyramid, and it is that, whatever. But he's got them on every finger. And I'm like, dude, come on, man. Because he said, I ain't the freaking man. What are you talking about? I don't know. I said, bro, come on, man. I might be young, but I'm not stupid, man. I'm no dummy, bro. I know you're the man behind the man. He's like, what you mean? I said, I know you're the man behind Joe. You're the weight man. I said, come on, man. I said, he looks at me, he goes, you gonna sell your coat? Because he said, where'd you get the coat? I said, my mother bought me this coat. He said, you gonna sell the coat that your mother gave you, man? I said, bro, I'm literally starving. My dad don't buy food. I'm sitting in the house all day. He makes 1 meal a day. Maybe I eat some crackers or something. I'm hungry, man. I'm starving. I just need to make some money, man. And I know I can, pump some weed. He's like, stops and stares at me for a minute. All right, man, follow me. So he looks back at the house. Now, all these guys in the house, they're listening. They're kind of watching and listening. Like, what the frick are they talking about? He tells them, I'll be back. Follow me. So he backs this freaking lowrider out of the driveway, right? And I'll never forget the song. I've said this story before, and it's always going to be the same. He backs this freaking lowrider out. It's white and gold. It has like beige, like Louis Vuitton cover on the bed. Louis Vuitton interior. I don't know if it was Louis Vuitton interior, but it was all beige. And this white and gold pimped out. And by the way, he was wearing a white tracksuit at the time, too, with all this jewelry. And he pulls out and hits play on a tape, because that's back when there was tapes. There was no CDs back then. And the song, Ice-T's song Colors popped on. Now, this dude's got like 4 15-inch subwoofers in the back of this bed of this truck. Probably some more in the cab. 4. And all I hear is boom, colors, colors, colors. And it's banging. It's so freaking loud. I mean, I'm immediately like, oh my God, the cops are going to come. Sound like a concert. Like, have you ever heard a concert? It sounded like he was rolling through this like subdivision with a concert in the back of his truck. Super loud. Like you could hear it freaking a mile away. And I didn't know where we were going, but I'm trying to keep up on my raggedy moped. Maybe he went 5 blocks. He turns a corner, like second house to the corner, pulls in the driveway. So, I pull up behind him, park on the sidewalk, and says, come on. We're walking in the house. I think it was his mother was sitting there on the couch. Nice house. Wasn't all plush and super crazy, but it was nice. It was nicer than most houses in the area, inside wise. He walks into a bedroom, and he says, well, he goes in the closet, and there's a safe in the closet, a big safe, and he like almost not a walk-in safe, but almost like a gun safe, and he opens it up, and I see about 10 pounds of weed in there, right? Which to me was the most weed I'd ever seen. It was like the most weed I'd ever seen was probably an ounce, maybe. I never seen them, maybe even only half ounce, and 10 pounds stacked up in there, right? I don't remember if there was any guns or cash. I just remember looking at the weed like, whoa. He says, hands me a pound. He says, weigh yourself a quarter pound on the beam over there, on the triple beam. Hands me this. So I'm like, and I look at the triple beam that's sitting on on top of a dresser, and I like embarrassed. I'm like, I don't know how that works. He's like, you don't have a scale? I'm like, nah. He just looks at me for a minute. He's like, you don't have any money, do you? I said, nothing, man. I don't even have enough gas to get home, bro. He pulls out a big freaking knot about this big. Must have been $5,000 in smaller bills, He peels off a $10 bill, not a 20, not a 100, a 10. He says, take this, go to Plum Pit on Gratiot, which is this head shop on Gratiot that sells pipes and weed papers and stuff like that. He says, and get you a hand scale. They're like $5 or $6. I said, okay. So I go, I weigh up the quarter, he helps me weigh up the quarter pound, and he says, I'm going to give you this on a front. I'm going to charge you $700. And in my mind, I'm trying to do the math real quick. I'm like, geez, that seems like a lot. But he says, you can make $260 or something like $280, something like that. $240, whatever it was, something like that. He's like, now, if you flip this and bring my money back, I'll give you a better break in the next one. I'm testing you out right now. I'm trying you out. Then he said the standard stuff. No, you don't know me. You don't know my name. Don't ever use my name. If you get in trouble, you get a lawyer and you get out of it. You don't tell, blah, blah, blah. Of course, man. I don't come from that kind of that upbringing. So he sends me on my way, and I go to Plum Pit. I buy a hand scale. I remember swinging by my grandparents' house on the way home to get a meal, because I kind of went out of my way to do my grandparents' house. It was another like 5-7 miles on the way, but I was hungry, and I wanted to have a good meal. And I stole all of my grandma's baggies. I went because I didn't have any baggies. So I went and stole these baggies, right? So I go home, spending a couple hours weighing them up, one bag at a time, one bag at a time, one bag at a time. Went to get it in this, now it's in the big bag, but it's all eighth ounces. I call my cousin Frankie. His real name isn't Frankie, but I call him Frankie because I'm not exposing his identity, right? He was a crazy mother effer. He was a tough kid, and he had a gun. I knew he had access to a gun. It was his dad's gun, but he could take it and dad wouldn't know. So I said, come down here, because he lived in another city. He lived in Grosse Pointe. And I said, come back over here. We're going to go slang this weed. I need you to have my back. I'll throw you a bag of weed. We'll smoke a joint, hang out, whatever. Just have my back. I said, bring your dad's gun. He said, like, he was excited. He's like, oh, that sounds like a great time. Let's go. So he comes there. I go over we drive to the Oxford Square. It looks exactly like it always does. Now there's crack dealers on the corners and, people coming and going by. I go to my friend Sydney's. I'm not sure because Sydney had a brother named Ray, and it might have been, I saw Ray that day. They also had a cousin named Carlos. And then there was another dude. I can't think of his freaking name, but he reminded me of some guys in prison with it. Well, they're all hanging out. And I said, yo, I got that good weed. The weed you guys are always asking for. They're like, word? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, what do you want? Quarter pound, pull a quarter pound. They're like, damn, dude, let me get 4. And they're trying to get me to give them a break. They're all like, give me a break, give me a break. I'm like, no, I can't do it. Can't give me a break. So I say, they actually take me to like there's like a square, right? And that's where everybody hangs out. And I end up slanging all this weed there in a couple hours. I hope I didn't tell this story already. I don't have to cut all this out of there. It'd be a damn shame, but whatever. And anyways, I sold all this weed. Me and my cousin Frankie. sitting there. Sold it all. And I cut some breaks, but not much. I gave them a little deal. If they bought an ounce, I'd shave off $10 or something. But other than that, it was just I told them, I said, I'm trying to eat like you, man. Just trying to make my money, man, just like you. The crackhead comes in and says, buys 10 stones, give me a break. You don't want to give him a break. I said, freaking, it's $20 a stone, whatever. Like, yeah, you get it, man. So sold him all this dope. Then I go home, count my money. I think I've made close to $300, and I went grocery shopping and filled my refrigerator with groceries. Fill it up. So I feel like I've already told this story on this little series. If so, well, whatever. I'll keep moving forward. I think I didn't I'll tell you how I got into steroids, if that's the case. I have to take a break and listen really quick. Hold on.